There was no person in the whole world who could convince me Toronto's Rise of the Titans had to exist. This pitiful excuse for a movie caused more problems than it solved. When DreamWorks announced that Toronto's would have 2 more installments, everyone assumed that Wizards would be the final series until left on a cliffhanger. Then DreamWorks announced the movie, and it was the true end of the franchise. But it did not end well, even though it started out great. Rise of the Titans was supposed to be this epic adventure story with an intense climax that ties all 3 stories together, but it had a cop-out ending, destroyed multiple characters' development and arcs, and carelessly ignored the pre-established lore of the franchise. And I wouldn't recommend anyone watch this movie because the ending is so bad that you'll be so sad to rewatch the whole franchise and know how badly it ends. A bad ending ruins the whole franchise. The story of this movie isn't original whatsoever. It was like any other bland crossover movie that tries to trick you with amazing visuals and an overly famous producer. That isn't enough to stop me from tearing into this movie like a pack of wolves. This uninspiring copycat plot lines from other movies and episodes that did them so much better is a weak attempt to link the stories of Toronto's, Three Below, and Wizards together. But one of those stories and its lore, characters, and everything else did not fit with the other 2. The story of Rise of the Titans felt more like a Wizards Part 2. They had the same villains and the same overused time travel plot. If they wanted to conclude the franchise, they could have just made another 4 episodes in the one and only season of Wizards. It would have been fine to call it quits there like they originally planned, but the writers got ideas that made them dig their own graves. The Arcane Order was the primary villains of the movie, but they also originated from Wizards, where Duxie was the main character. And the fact that Jim got to defeat them, not the adoptive son of the man they killed, is a blow to Duxie and his story. Duxie didn't get enough time in the franchise to develop fully. He had the most interesting story out of all the main characters, so he had so much potential and he was wasted. It's as if the writers wanted to relive the glory days of Toronto's, all while betraying the series at the same time. The movie used a past plotline from a critical episode from Toronto's, and it failed to execute it properly, which led to the lore of Toronto's being destroyed in the process. In the much better version of this reused plotline, Jim had to go through life just being a normal teenager, only to realize that he was the chosen one for a reason. In the movie's version of this, anyone could be the chosen one, and who they are as a person does not matter. The plot of Rise of the Titans reeked of a lack of creativity and imagination and had nothing to contribute to the universe. The lazy writing infected the characters as well. Pretty much all the characters were betrayed in some way or another. Duxie never avenged Merlin's death by taking out his killers. Jim betrayed his best friend and forced him to bear his losses and responsibilities. Claire didn't serve her purpose whatsoever, and somehow she was more useless than she was in Toronto's. She was as useful as square wheels on a cover. Toby's only job was to be the comedic relief and die, which set off the worst ending in DreamWorks history. Aja turned into an unbearable person who didn't put in much effort to care about her friends. But at least she was right all along. The writers struggled to tie in every other character to the story due to its large cast. This led to Steve being used as nothing but a dumb side story character that used Three Below's lore as a toilet. There was a line from Steve that could have led to a brand new arc for him, but for Jim as well.
You got a new boyfriend? I knew I wasn't good enough for you!
If Steve was feeling insecure about being in a relationship with a girl who was a queen, he could have created a new order of knights of Camelot and invited Jim to be one of them. It would have done the following things. 1. Made Steve feel like he was worthy of Aja. 2. Jim would have found new purpose since he was no longer the troll hunter. And 3. It would have created a friendship between Jim and Steve. Doing this would have been a smarter move, but that would have been good writing, and that's not allowed anymore. The redeemed bad guys were also betrayed. In a not so surprising move, the trio of idiot writers decided to do the obvious move and kill them off. As if we haven't seen that before in any movie, TV show, video game, or book before. After a while, it becomes a bad cliche and wins any shock value or meaning to the deaths because it was expected. Strickler had the most pointless death because it achieved nothing and reminded everyone that Barbara can never be happy. Nothing was safe in Rise of the Titans. Everything was on the chopping block for this movie, and yet everything that happened was not worth it because everything that got fixed through time travel and a cop-out ending since the writers didn't have the guts to give a character a nasty fate. everything had to be all sunshine and rainbows, which is just boring and unsatisfying. In doing so, it made the stakes feel fake and overdramatic. In conclusion, this is a waste of time to watch because none of it happened. It's worth asking why this movie exists in the first place. I think the cliffhanger of Wizards is a much better ending than this disgrace. That's all I have to say about this movie, and remember,
You didn't see anything.